But I've learned that I was building my skills, I was building my confidence, and I was recognizing my passion. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. So I want to start with asking 3 questions. First, who know what a podcast is? Raise your hand if you know what a podcast is. Okay, keep your hand up if you know someone who has wanted to start a podcast. Okay. For the last question, I promise it's the last one. Keep your hand up if you thought about starting it yourself. Okay. Next slide. So my name is Terryl Humphrey. I'm the CEO of FIK Advertising, and I'm a Marine author and I'm the CEO of FIK Advertising. So next slide. Back in 2020, during COVID, as the world was shutting down, my world was opening up because of a phone, because of a camera, because I was able to get on camera and tell my story, tell my experiences, and share what I've been through. So while I was serving in the Marine Corps, it was good, it was great, it was phenomenal, but it wasn't fulfilling because I had to find my own purpose, I had to find my own passion. Dean mentioned something about your passion. We all have passion, it's just recognizing what your passion actually is. Next slide. So after 893 podcast episodes, I've learned that I was doing something wrong. 893 different videos. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of topics. But I've learned that I was building my skills, I was building my confidence, and I was recognizing my passion. So my passion was helping other entrepreneurs not only find their passion, but recognize that you have a passion because of what you have been through and the experience that you have grown through. Next slide. And so when I recognized I was doing something wrong, I didn't have the business model behind just creating content. If y'all haven't saw, there's a camera and a phone on there. So I'm very comfortable speaking on camera. But now that I'm starting to learn about business, I learned that I was lacking advertising. So the first customer, I was my first customer. And even though it has 999 different impressions, that's a lot. When I first asked the question, who here know what a podcast is? Everyone raised their hand. And then it got to narrow down of who knows someone. It get narrower and narrower. So with advertising, I didn't know that even though you can reach a large audience, you have to be able to connect with that large audience. And that's where your passion comes into place. That's where your experience comes into place. That's where your storytelling comes into place. Next slide. And according to Buzzsprout, this is the podcast growth projection, meaning that there's a lot of people listening to podcasts. There's a lot of different conversations going on. There's a lot of different topics being discussed. So why can't you discuss your topic about your passion for yourself? So next slide. So my packages are podcast course. So podcast course, podcast workshop, and then for the next one is podcast mastermind, teaching you how to start your podcast, how to grow your podcast, and potentially how to monetize your podcast. Next slide. So this is a QR code. We ain't gonna come through that one just yet. Next slide. And then at my ads. So I'm not gonna insult y'all intelligence. If y'all can take 15 seconds to read the theme, then I'll be quiet. Okay.
It's been automated the whole time.
So what I'm looking for is professional consultant that understand the digital world and understand the numbers, just like you mentioned earlier. Forgive me, I forgot your name, but you said data. Say it again. Jim. You said data sales, and in order for me to grow and develop more, I have to collect more data and know what to do with the data. So that's my ask. Okay.
All set. All right, let's open up for questions. You got 4 minutes.
Hi.
How are you?
We talked about this before. So you wanted to be an advertising agency or a mentorship program?
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked. A mentorship program, okay. Mainly because there are steps. I think it was here, but I was learning that there are steps like different phases. People go through different phases. And just like you mentioned, you can add the advertising on different stages. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Because it makes sense, like, because when you're speaking, it sounds you're more passionate about helping podcasters become the best podcaster and learning their journey through podcasting than being an actual advertising agency, which can be a part of the mentorship program. So,
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Can you describe the needs or you need what needs your company has in order to become the challenges and then you find out.
So just so I understand, you want me to describe the needs that my company have? So
These are the challenges that you're experiencing now.
what do you mean by needs? Like,
What challenges do you experience?
thank you for the clarification.
To overcome those challenges?
So another question: who here is an entrepreneur? Everybody's in here. Like I did that. So even though you're an entrepreneur, you have different experiences that you go through. It's identifying what you would like to talk about and the topics that's relatable to other individuals. I didn't get up here sharing my whole life, but it's just different problems that we go through. Like if you want to start a podcast, where do you start? Problem issue number one, where do you start? You start with your story. Okay, what story? I don't know about. I'm 25. I've been through life just a little bit, but it's just recognizing the type of stories that you like to share to build your audience.
So you're a podcast expert. I know nothing about podcasting. I want to start one. Would you, if you're selling me on this concept about podcasting, do you provide the studio as well? What value added are you giving me besides just teaching me a few steps on how to do the podcast? Are you walking me through inception to completion to launch in the whole 9 yards? Are you providing any other value added besides just mentorship?
So not at the moment, as far as like recording in person. Furthermore, as far as guiding you along the way, yes, that for now that's the focus, because if you can guide and start, you can continue to go on, because statistically speaking, podcasters who start podcasting only make 5 episodes. I've done 893. That's a lot. So to answer your question, in person, not right now, but just to guide you along the way, that's what the focus is right now.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for podcasters?
What is the biggest challenge? So not knowing your story, not being comfortable sharing your story. We've all been through things. I'm 25. I've been through divorce. I was in the Marine Corps. I experienced more life than context.
Then how do you advise on context?
Say it again?
How do you advise on context?
On content.
Yeah, like say telling my story, right?
Mhm.
Which is the biggest challenge you're saying, and that's come with having enough content and then be able to tell, speak about
Right.
the content. How do you advise on that?
Well, you have to practice it. You have to practice learning how to share your story. You have to practice being open and communicating to a mass audience.
That's where you come in.
Yes, that's to guide you along the way. Like, this is the practice, and this is what you need to do, and these are the steps to follow.
Okay, so you sell a framework through the workshops and the mastermind, and then you can either implement through the advertising agency services then that you offer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 2 ways that you're making revenue.
3, webinar seminars. We got about that.
Webinars,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
That's time. That's any time.
Thank you.